Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed very often in the sewing world. Renting sewing machines. Believe it or not, there are actually places where you can borrow or rent a sewing machine instead of buying one. I didn't know much about it myself until I started looking around. And I thought it'd be interesting to share what I learned. Now, why would somebody rent a sewing machine? Maybe you're traveling. Maybe your machine broke down in the middle of a project. Maybe you're thinking about buying a new machine but want to try it first. Or maybe you're just curious about different brands and features. Whatever the reason, renting can be a pretty useful option. So let's talk about a few things you should know if you're thinking about renting a sewing machine. First, where do you even find one? Most rentals seems to be available in medium to larger cities. Sewing machine dealerships are probably the most common place, but they're not the only option. I've seen quilt shops, sewing and vacuum places, sewing retreats, schools, quilt guilds, sewing clubs, and even libraries offer machines for borrowing. In fact, I borrowed one from my local library. It was completely free, and I could keep it for 3 weeks with the option to renew it. And the best part is, I just showed them my library card, and that's it. I didn't have to sign nothing. If you're interested in finding one near you, my advice is simple. Start calling around. Ask local quilt shops, dealerships, libraries, and sewing groups. You can also post a question on social media because sometimes people know about resources that are not widely advertised or can be easily Googled. Rental prices are all over the place. I've seen prices as low as free and as high as $25–30 an hour. Some places charge by the day, some by the week, and some only rent machines as part of a class or a retreat. You may also run into extra requirements. Some places want a deposit, some require a membership, others want proof that you're a local resident, and every business seems to have its own rules. That's the one thing you learn pretty quickly when you start looking into machine rentals. Every place does things a little differently. Now let's talk about machines themselves. One thing you should know is that you usually don't get a huge selection. It really depends on who's renting them and what's out in circulation and what's not in circulation. If you're renting from a dealership, you probably have more choices. But if you're borrowing from a library, sewing club, or community organizations, you're most limited to whatever they have available at the time. Honestly, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Most rental machines can handle the everyday sewing projects most people are doing anyway. And here's something I always recommend. Ask questions. Seriously, make a list if you have to. One of the first questions I asked was, what happens if the machine breaks? I want to know. The answer surprised me. They basically told me, it happens. Sometimes it's a real mechanical problem, sometimes it's an operator error, sometimes the next renter discovers the issue and reports it. Then the machine gets sent out for repair. So what I'm trying to say, they already know what they're doing. Of course, not every business is that relaxed about it. Some have very strict policies. So everybody have their own different restrictions. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm saving a jean here. The fabric seems to be so stretched out because this is supposed to be a stretched jean, but it got so wonky and stretched out over time because of the washing, and I don't want to throw this away, so I'm gonna just make short pants out of this instead of donating it or buying a new shirt. I could use a new short pants this summer. When you hit a bump, you have to slow down, okay? Be mindful, pay attention, and listen. I made a different video about this, so this is what I'm doing here because I'm not familiar with this machine at all. I have not sewn anything heavy duty in this machine, so I have to be very careful. Alright, it did it. I was struggling a little bit, and I can understand this is not supposed to be for heavy duty use, but jeans like this, it should be able to tackle it. I made a different video on hemming jeans, so you can learn more about it. If you're just curious about something, why would businesses rent out their sewing machines? Are they asking for trouble? Oh no. In fact, they're also thinking about people that are traveling. People that have machine but it's in the repair shop and they need to have a machine to finish their project. Maybe they're helping out a family member with a project and they're traveling to a different city. Maybe they're taking a class. Maybe it's a retreat. Maybe they can sell you another sewing machine from their shop. For me, my real reason for borrowing this machine is curiosity. I enjoy trying different machines and learning what makes them unique. Every time I borrow a machine, I discover something new. And sometimes, the marketing doesn't tell the whole story. I own computerized sewing machines that's advertised as one-touch buttonholes. Then I tried this machine, and now this is the real one-touch buttonholes. And I'm not gonna open a can of worms about how complex buttonhole descriptions are. But this one, you just touch one, like you really do touch one. I have other ones where it's kind of a loaded topic here. So I learned something new about this one. Sometimes you don't know what you're missing until you try it. Now, here's the part that nobody likes hearing. When you borrow a sewing machine, you are pretty much on your own when it comes to learning how to use it. Most places are not going to sit beside you and teach you every feature. The machine usually comes with a manual, and that's about it. You'll probably hear, "The manual is included," "Read the manual," "It's in the manual." That's the answer. So my advice is to look up the machine model on YouTube before you bring it home. Or if you're stuck, there are tutorials for almost everything nowadays. Just make sure you type in the correct model and brand name. If you're a complete beginner, renting can be a little intimidating. Even the simple things like threading the machine, winding a bobbin, changing a needle, or adjusting tensions can feel overwhelming if you've never done it before. You don't need to be an expert, but having a little experience definitely helps. And if you have a sewing friend nearby, even better. Now let's talk about value. Renting makes a lot of sense if you're shopping for a machine. Think about it. Instead of relying on advertising, reviews, or sales, you actually get to sew with the actual machine yourself. So you learn what you like, you learn what annoys you learn what features matter and which ones don't, and most importantly, you have not committed to a major purchase yet. Sometimes the value isn't about the money, sometimes it's about the lifestyle. Maybe you're busy, maybe you only sew a few times a year, maybe you don't have space for another machine. Renting gives you flexibility. Of course, with that flexibility comes responsibility. Remember, the machine doesn't belong to you. Treat it carefully. Keep track of the accessories. Don't force anything. Be respectful of the equipment. My philosophy is simple. Be nice to the machine and hopefully the machine will be nice to you. What are the good brand machines? Bernina. Number 1. Janome. FAP, Husqvarna. The older machines are really sound, solid machines. You can't break them. I mean, you could, but they're hard to break. Nowadays, don't even consider renting out the newer Singer and low-end Brother machines. They're just not built for renting. Especially the Brother, where they have kind of two different sets of quality control. The really, really good Brothers are really good, and the lower end Brother are just not that good. Paying attention to the brand of the sewing machine you're renting involves trust. And if I'm renting a Bernina, a FAP, a Husqvarna, or a Janome, I'll feel good about it. Not so much on the other brands. But, it's a case-to-case basis too. Now, let's do a little math. If you're considering renting, compare the rental cost to your actual sewing needs. A used machine might cost less than several months of rentals. A new machine comes with warranties and return policies. But if your need is short-term, renting might still make perfect sense. Okay, very happy with the alteration. I'm just wearing it. I'm wearing it right now. Every situation is different. And here's something else to keep in mind. The people renting the machine to you are not necessarily your sewing coaches. Good customer service is wonderful, but don't confuse a business relationship with a personal mentor, okay? Ask reasonable questions, absolutely. But remember, at the end of the day, renting is a business transaction. This is where renting can become really interesting. This is where renting can have a little twist because you cannot really take the machine with you at home because they're really big or heavy or specialty machines. Embroidery machines, the fancy ones, long arm quilting machines, industrial machines like Juki, and leather machines. These are specialized machines that may require or comes with free training, or you have to pay a mandatory fee to learn to operate the machine. So some of these are very expensive, heavy, and impractical for many people to own because they're big. In the case of long arm quilting machines, there are many quilt shops that offer rental time on their equipment. Instead of spending thousands of dollars, you might spend $50 for a few hours. For many people, that's a fantastic deal. The nice thing about these locations often provide some guidance to help you get started. Some offer free machine operation tutorial, like 30 minutes or 1 hour. Some you have to pay like $180 just to learn how to use the machine. So they all vary. They do this because this is not really hand-holding, but enough to keep you from making major mistake and break the machine. Equipment training for some of these specialized sewing machines can be very valuable if you're gonna do it more in the future. Now let's talk about the worst case scenario. What if it breaks? Depending on the rental agreement, you may be responsible for parts, labor, or repair cost. Now, I would run away if someone would let me sign a 3-page agreement. No, don't even go there. Just get a new sewing machine. That's why I always recommend reading the agreement carefully. Take photos when you pick up the machine. Take photos when you return it. Document the accessories that came with it. A few minutes of documentation can save a lot of headaches later. And this renting is about trust. The renter trusts you to take care of the machine, and I trust them to believe in me that I took care of their machines. I'm not finding the right words to describe what I'm trying to say. Anyway, finally, let's talk about the business side of rentals. Businesses don't rent machines because they want to lose money. They rent them because it's a service that can introduce customers to products, classes, repairs, accessories, parts, and future purchases. Okay, so it's a win-win situation. In many cases, the rental machine eventually pays for itself. Like, think about renting a machine for $50 a day. In several months, the machine pays for itself, because a lot of these machines that being rented out there cost about $200 to $500 brand new at some point. Now, before I wrap this up, let's address one common complaint. Sometimes people rent a machine and immediately compare it to the one they already own or they have used before. I don't like this machine. This is not how my machine works. I don't like it. This is crap. I don't like what it's doing. Every machine feels different. Some you will love, some you will hate. Some will be somewhere in the middle. The good news is if you're renting it, it's not like you're committed to it. If you don't like it, you can return it. It's not yours. So here's my final thought. So here's my final thought. Whether you're traveling, helping a grandchild with a school project, making baby blankets, repairing clothing, testing a machine before buying, or simply curious about sewing, renting can be a useful option. Do the math, consider your needs, think about your budget, and decide whether renting makes sense for your situation. The reason I'm making this video is to spread awareness. I think communities benefit when rental programs exist, and more of it. Libraries, schools, sewing clubs, quilt guilds, churches, community centers, and dealerships can all play a role. Not everyone wants to buy a sewing machine. Not everyone has room for one. Not everyone knows if they're gonna stick with sewing for long-term use. But people still need to repair things. A zipper breaks, a dog chews a bedsheet, a seam comes apart, a button falls off. Those needs don't disappear. And lately, I've been thinking about fabric stores closing and how much knowledge and access we're losing along the way. Sewing isn't just about making things. Sometimes it's about repairing something you already have and keeping it out of the landfill. That's something I care about. So maybe sewing machine rentals are one small way to help people repair, reuse, and save things instead of throwing them away. Anyway, those are my thoughts on renting sewing machines. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you on my next video.